Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Tharp. I am a board certified internal medicine doctor, and my goal is to spread the word that yes, you can reverse type 2 diabetes as well as prediabetes. So I'm here tonight to spread the word. I help women overcome prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. So if you want to join me tonight, feel free to share, where you're from, what's your biggest worry when it comes to diabetes and prediabetes, and share what your numbers are. What was your last A1C and what do you want it to be? So, um, you know, I want you to know that tonight is all about you. It's all about what you can achieve, and it's about debunking what you've been led to believe about prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. It is completely reversible. Um, so this is for you if you have been feeling overwhelmed and exhausted about having prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. A lot of people worry about the way they're feeling. They're not feeling as good as they should. They don't know what to do. They know something should be done differently. They're trying, but they just you might not be able to do it confidently. And you realize that life doesn't come in a bottle, or in the case of advanced type 2 diabetes, a syringe, right? So you want to be able to avoid being on more and more medications, maybe even reduce medications. And yes, that's possible. You don't have to be on medications for the rest of your life if you take the right steps, and this can be done naturally. And it's all about taking control. It's all about understanding that you own your health. And because you own your health, you can do whatever you want with it. If you remain, in this mindset that, you have to stay on the medicines your whole life and this is just the way it is, or this is the aging process, then you will get into trouble. But if you take those steps to understand how you can take ownership of your health, then for sure you will find that you can overcome type 2 diabetes. You're probably wondering, well, what brought me here? And so, not only am I here as a physician, not only have I worked for over a decade helping people feel better, but I'm coming from a place, from a family who's also struggled with type 2 diabetes. My grandmother, she was a huge influence in my life, a pillar of her community. She was an incredible woman who had a passion for helping others. And she struggled with type 2 diabetes, a highly educated woman who too had these struggles. And I found myself also in that vicious cycle, of developing insulin resistance, not feeling well, and realizing very quickly as a physician that I had to make some serious changes. And I did. And after I made those changes and they worked, I averted being on medication. I averted that sentence that so many other women have. And that is, I averted the sentence of type prediabetes or type 2 diabetes because I took those steps and I decided, that I wanted to help women overcome that same fate and to bring themselves back from that fate. Um, so today we're going to be talking about prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. We're going to be talking about the current healthcare system. Why isn't it working? Why do we have such an epidemic? We're going to be talking about the underlying causes. How did we get here, right? And we're going to talk about the action that you can take to really overcome prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. And the key word here is naturally, right? We're not talking about no medications. We're not talking about being on Ozempic. We are talking about a natural approach to reversing diabetes, prediabetes, and type 2 diabetes. So, first of all, this is what we want to avoid, right? It's everyone's the first time you've heard you have prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, this is the picture that pops up in your head, I'm sure. And this is the fear that you have. And for those of you who find yourself on more and more medications, this fear is even more real. And so, again, we can pull you back from the brink of being on insulin. We can pull you back from this fear so that you do feel in control. You don't feel like this disease is taking over your life and dictating where your health goes, but rather you can dictate where your health goes. So, we're going to talk about how we can push back on that. Diabetes has a very far reaching implications, right? It affects every organ system in our body. It affects our eyes, it affects our liver, it affects our gastrointestinal tract, it affects our urinary system, it affects our nerves. So it's there, it's silently doing its damage. For some of us, we're actually experiencing some symptoms already. And again, that just makes the fear of what's to come worse, which no one should live in fear, right? Um, this starts out by you feel tired, right? You feel tired, you feel sluggish, you feel fatigued, you feel unmotivated. So it really starts like this, and then it snowballs into depression, into this uncontrollable weight gain. And with this uncontrollable weight gain, it comes this sense of losing control of your health, of your body. So, we definitely want to make sure that you feel in control. And I'm here to empower you with the tools that you need to overcome this. So I just want to highlight, the success stories. This was one of my clients. She actually struggled with PCOS, and PCOS does have a relationship with prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. They coexist very frequently. And that's because there is a significant dysfunction with hormones, right? And so we're going to talk about hormones and how that also plays a significant role in the development of prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, but also plays a role in just continuing this vicious cycle and making things worse. So she had PCOS. She was on the verge of starting medications, and she decided that's not the route she wanted to go. So we started working together, and she was able to shed 23 pounds in a matter of weeks. And she was able to again come back from the brink of being on medication, of falling into that vicious cycle. And so, she posted this online under one of the reviews where she's clearly showing her before and her after. And so you can see naturally she was able to achieve these results. She was able to push back on prediabetes and avert being sentenced to medications and sentenced to all the other issues that arise when diabetes gets worse. So we have to talk about where we are right now, right? We are on a sinking ship. And when I say we're on a sinking ship, I'm talking about the way our current healthcare system works. Um, there's not a whole lot of guidance when it comes to reversing prediabetes and type 2 diabetes naturally. What tends to happen is you go into your doctor, the labs are drawn, it shows that you have prediabetes, or that now you're full blown diabetes, or that your diabetes has now continued to progress. And the next step is always, well, let's do some medication. What medications are we going to prescribe? Is the next step. And there is tends to be some talk about lifestyle change, but it's just very on the surface discussion. There's no real guidance that's given. There's no step-by-step guidance. There's no real prescription that's provided, right, for lifestyle change. And so what you tend to find is people who really want to do this naturally, even though they might be given the opportunity to do that at first, they're not given the actual guidance. And that's where many people become frustrated. They try everything and it doesn't work. And the process of reversing prediabetes and type 2 diabetes is a complicated issue. It does take some degree of expertise. And unfortunately, many people are left to do this on their own. And so it doesn't work. And so that's why so many people tend to fail at bringing themselves back from that pre-diabetic diagnosis. And instead, they just continue to progress. So You can imagine that's happening across the board in our healthcare system. And so there's a significant epidemic now, because our healthcare model is pretty much what I call the sick care model, right? It's very, very focused on what do you have and what do we prescribe. And it's the problem here is that there is no incentive, there is no reward for actually naturally reversing disease, chronic disease, in this case, prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. The actual incentive and profit is driven by pushing prescription medications. So the whole point of, of letting you know that you can do this is, number one, we have to figure out what's not working, and what's not working is the traditional way of doing things. Okay, so insurance companies pay doctors, and in order for these doctors to be paid by insurance companies, they have to treat you for an illness, right? So there's no real incentives to spend time with you and to talk about how you naturally reverse the disease and to guide you through that, because insurance companies don't pay for you to be healthy, they pay for you to be sick. And that's unfortunate, but that's the reality, and that is what's really wrong with our system. So we have to do this on our own, right? We have to step outside of a system that's not working. So you would not stay on a sinking ship, right? You would bail, you would jump on the life raft, and you would save yourself. So the whole point here is you have to step outside of the sick care model in order to successfully reverse prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. So our healthcare system, current healthcare system, the current model is broken. We have to recognize that. We have to understand that insurance companies will not pay for you to to get better. They will pay for you to continue to be on medications, right? So we have to recognize that. So how did we get in this predicament of prediabetes and type 2 diabetes? The predicament started with all these processed foods that we're eating. It's widely available. We turn on our phones, we turn our computers on, we turn our TVs on, and we're inundated with messages about food, right? And much of our food is processed, and a lot of those ingredients that go into the food is not certified as safe, right? It's not healthy stuff. It's not clean whole foods. So our diet is a huge part of the problem. We're a sedentary society now. We don't move our bodies, and so that contributes. Our stress levels are through the roof. We're all trying to survive. We're in stressful jobs. We're moms, we're juggling being moms, we're juggling stressful jobs, careers, and everything that comes with that. And so that stress increases our hormonal dysfunction. And those hormones in our body are, our bodies think we're always in a fight or flight mode. And because we get that rush of all these stress hormones, our bodies just suffer. And one side effect of those dysfunctional hormones is prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. And the last thing is, I have to say, our complacency, right? As a community, as a society, we have become somewhat okay with being on medications. Medications are a band aid, right? One of the things we have to realize if we want to take back our health, reverse prediabetes and type 2 diabetes naturally, is we have to understand that medications are not going to achieve that for us. We have to actually implement the work ourselves in order to be off of medications. But society as a whole has become, and our healthcare system as a whole has become okay with using medications. The medication will get your blood sugar down, for a few hours. You eat, the blood sugar rises again, and you need the medication again. So again, it's just, we've developed this complacency. We've developed with just being okay on medications. You will have people with prediabetes, type 2 diabetes. I don't have to tell you this. You're here because you're experiencing significant symptoms and you want to know how you can overcome it. So people struggle with fatigue, constant cravings and hunger, the inability to lose weight, that they are just overall feeling, terrible. And so many people feel so bad and they feel like there's no way out. So I'm here to tell you there is a way out from this. So I go according to the five principles of reversing prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. And the principles are nutrition, detox, hormones, fitness, and mentorship. In order to naturally reverse prediabetes and type 2 diabetes, and tonight, one of the areas I'm going to focus on specifically is nutrition. What we find is that nutrition is 80%, okay, of overcoming prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. Can you reverse prediabetes and type 2 diabetes with nutrition alone? Probably not completely, but you can definitely make some headway with nutrition, okay? It is a critical part of the puzzle. The reason people struggle with, a lot of the women that I take care of, a lot of the women that I help achieve their goals, they say to me, I'm eating healthy. I'm having my oatmeal in the morning. I'm eating just fruit. I've cut out sugary drinks. They're taking all those steps, but yet it's not working. And so one of the things that we identify very early on when it comes to nutrition is that the things you're doing is healthy for everyone else. Yes, it's healthy for the average person who doesn't have prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, but not necessarily healthy for you as a pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetic. And so that is one of the biggest things that we identify early on, is that what everybody else is doing that may be healthy, you can't do as a diabetic. And so that is why it's really important to have that specific guidance, because if you don't, you'll tend to make mistakes that you don't realize you're making. And sometimes those mistakes actually can make things worse, right? Because those habits are again not working. It could be making things worse, and that's why when you go to the doctor, you get your numbers checked, the numbers are worse. So with nutrition, it's really important to have a very pre-diabetic and diabetic focused nutrition plan. Okay, so that is one of the biggest things. That's how I start. Is we start by figuring out what are you doing right and what are you doing wrong, and how do we make things better, right? How do we implement good habits? Another mistake many women make are skipping meals. Many women become so worried or frustrated that their numbers aren't getting any better that they start skipping breakfast, or they go into intermittent fasting, and the intermittent fasting isn't done properly. And in that case, they start to feel worse and their numbers don't get any better. Again, in some cases, the numbers get worse. And the concept there, I get their thinking, right? Their thinking is that, okay, if I just cut out everything, go into a fast, then my body's just going to get better, right? Diabetes is just going to go away. I get that thinking, because those are the messages society send us. But unfortunately, that's not how it works. And so a lot of women are amazed that I actually say you have to eat more. So one of again, the first things I do is I establish you have to feed your body. And they're amazed that they're able to eat, they're able to feel full and satisfied, and still see their numbers get better. So again, another huge misconception that women make is they starve themselves. And that just makes hormones go wacky. It makes the diabetes worse. It pushes the body into a stress state, and things just get tremendously worse from there. So there are very subtle mistakes that people make, that women in particular make, not realizing that it's more detrimental. Another big mistake is that some women, again, medications, right? Some women are trying to avoid medications altogether. But some women jump on the what we call the Ozempic craze, right? The GLP-1 agonist craze. And don't get me wrong, those medications, people drop weight very rapidly. And the reason I mention weight here is that many times type 2 diabetes does go hand in hand with excess body fat, right? The excess body fat is very dysfunctional and drives pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes. You jump on the Ozempic bandwagon, you lose, 20, 30 pounds. And the problem there is that you find that the blood sugars might get better, but that diabetes does not completely go away 100%. Or if you stop the medication, the numbers go right back up, the weight goes right back up. So again, the Ozempic bandwagon is another band-aid. It doesn't work, and you actually sacrifice a little piece of your body, because when you gain all that weight, when the diabetes comes back, it comes back with a vengeance. Why? It's because it's a shortcut. You took a shortcut without learning how you could use nutrition as your medicine, right? Your nutrition should be your medicine. But if you go around that, if you take the shortcut and then that shortcut goes away, everything comes back with a rush. So, those are some of the misconceptions that we tackle early. And again, I simplify a very complicated issue. And so a lot of women say to me, I can't believe that that's what it took. I can't believe I can eat all of this and still control my diabetes. So nutrition is the cornerstone. Now, the other thing I wanted to elaborate a little bit more about was the detox side of it. The detox is all about repair. And when we're working on reversing prediabetes and type 2 diabetes, we have to take the time to purge our bodies of the toxins that have built up within our bodies and have made our bodies dysfunctional, right? The toxins within our body has made it the perfect environment for prediabetes and type 2 diabetes to thrive. So detox is also one of the first things that I start with. It's done with nutrition. It's actually incorporated into nutrition. Again, is it uncomfortable? No. We're not talking about the detox where you're drinking some kind of a lemon tea, for 8 days, and then you're on the bathroom for another 5 days. We're not talking about something that's going to make you worse, because those make you worse and they're not safe. It's completely safe, and you feel a lot better. A lot of the women I work with feel so much better after going through that process. It's an intensive detox, a 4-week process, and we definitely make people feel better. As you can see by now, hormones play an essential role in the process of reversing prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. The key is understanding what's making your hormones go wacky. And believe it or not, it's the things we're putting into our body, and it's the habits that we do. So we spend a lot of time focusing on, improving certain habits, number one, and improving, again, nutrition and detox to get those hormones balanced. And then fitness, right? So this brings me back again to the Ozempic. When you lose a lot of weight, you lose muscle with that. And that's what Ozempic does. It makes you lose 30 pounds in a month. And with that 30 pounds, you lose healthy body tissue. So you don't just lose body fat, you lose the tissue in the body, the muscle in the body that's so critical to control blood sugars. So that's one of the reasons why, you don't necessarily feel a whole lot better after starting Ozempic or, rapidly losing weight. You don't feel a whole lot better when you go on these crash diets and you lose all that weight, is because, again, we lose muscle with that. So it's really important to approach fitness in a very specific manner that I call body recomposition. It's the process of holding on to muscle tissue, holding on to the good tissue in our bodies that help with glucose regulation, and then dumping the tissue that's not helping, which is excess fat. So it's a way we're basically selecting what weight we're losing. And that again, I'm breaking down a very complicated process into something that's simple and easy to do. And let's not forget the mentorship, right? That's why we are here tonight. Tonight, I am like a mentor. I am basically giving you the counseling the coaching that I give my clients. I spend a lot of time with my clients. I'm invested in my clients' success. So I spend time mentoring them. And for them, it's so enlightening. It's just very fulfilling when I can celebrate the progress, when I can keep them accountable, because when things get rough, when things get challenging, I'm there as a cheerleader. I'm there to keep them accountable, because how many times have you taken on a task, a mission, a challenge, and then a week or two it's fizzled out? You're too busy, you're busy, managing the house, managing the kids, getting work done, managing your career. How many times you're so busy with the external world that you've put off the things, the challenges that you've taken on for yourself, you've put that to the wayside. So accountability is a huge part of mentorship. So that is why I do what I do. That's why I go through this coaching process. Um, so again, food as nutrition, hormones are a very critical part of this, understanding what you're doing that's making your hormones wacky. A big hint that I'm going to give you is, if you're skipping breakfast, if you're just drinking black coffee in the morning, stop that right now. It's really important to eat throughout the day. The big question is, what are you eating? What do you have on your plate, and in what proportions? Because that's critical too. But you find that if you're eating the right things, eating in the right proportions, your hormones will become more functional, and your hormones will actually start to help you in the process of reversing prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. As you can see, every single function in our body depends on hormones. And so hormones play a really, when a particular hormone that I wanted to mention is cortisol. Many women, and I was one of them as well, struggle with stubborn belly fat. And when I decided to take the steps against insulin resistance for myself, I realized I struggled with, significant belly fat. Belly fat is an indicator of what we call visceral fat. Visceral fat is the fat that builds up around our organs and makes prediabetes and type 2 diabetes even worse. Cortisol is that hormone that's a big culprit there, because when I made changes, I worked in the hospital setting. In the hospital setting, it's super stressful. You're dealing with a lot of stressful issues, a lot of sad circumstances, and it's a very, very busy life as well, balancing motherhood, balancing career. And so that cortisol just sets in and it attacks your body. And so you find you build up that belly fat, and the cortisol drives prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. So it's really important to understand what's happening in my day-to-day life that's making my hormones wacky, and how can I overcome this. So that's a big part of the coaching that I do, is I help people identify what are you doing wrong and how can you cope, right? Because we can't make stress go away, but we can cope with it. We can cope better with it. And by coping better, we can make our hormones more functional. So across the board, our hormones are really important for our metabolism as well, and for fighting prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. The fitness, big thing is you must be lifting weights. That is how you're going to keep muscle and build muscle. And always remember, muscle is the currency of longevity. And it's also one of the keys to reversing prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. So it's really, really critical to be lifting weights, because after the age of 30, you start to lose muscle. And that is why by time we hit our 50s, 60s, we feel so much weaker. Our bodies feel weaker. We're having trouble doing things that we could have done easily 10, 20, 30 years ago, right? So that is why, is because the body is losing that muscle. And remember, think of muscle like the engine, right, in a car. It's like the engine in our bodies. And glucose is like the gasoline. So we need glucose to energize us, to keep us going. And the muscle is the engine that uses that glucose. But when we don't have enough muscle, when that engine isn't working, we're not burning the glucose, right? And where does that glucose go? It just sits in our blood. And there you go, prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. So that is why muscle is really, really important. There's no way around that. That is one of the keys to reversing type 2 diabetes. So, it's really important to find a mentor and to put all these pieces together, because not one by itself. Nutrition is huge, but is it by itself going to reverse prediabetes and type 2 diabetes? No, not by itself. So is exercise alone going to reverse prediabetes and type 2 diabetes? No, not by itself. So you have to coordinate everything carefully, simultaneously, and in a very pointed way in order to achieve this. And remember, what's healthy for everyone else without diabetes is not healthy for is not necessarily healthy for someone with diabetes and prediabetes. Again, another huge mistake that women make is that they're making choices based on what's healthy for the average person. But unfortunately, they have to take some additional steps because of their prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. So again, I wanted to highlight another success story. She, struggled with high blood pressure. What I do work with women who not only have prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, but also many of the times, and I'm sure you can attest to this, is if you have prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, you're probably hearing your blood pressure is a little high. You probably are on blood pressure medications. So unfortunately, prediabetes and type 2 diabetes comes with other chronic illnesses like high blood pressure and high cholesterol. It's very unusual for someone just to have prediabetes and type 2 diabetes, unfortunately. So, she worked with me, and she too was able to shed some weight. And with that weight loss, she also had significant improvement in the way she felt. And for her, the nutritional guidance was one of the biggest takeaways for her. So again, another, huge win here. And it's just, yeah, it's a fulfilling feeling, a fulfilling journey when I can, empower women to feel in control of their health again. And so these are the pieces put together, right? You cannot truly, permanently, forever reverse prediabetes and type 2 diabetes without carefully coordinating all of these, putting all of these pieces together. And again, I am on that mission to help women do just that. So, the big question, are you ready to make that change? That's what it comes down to. You have to take those steps. You're not going to do it in the traditional healthcare system. I can say that confidently. The traditional healthcare system is very centered around medications. Many of you know this already. Many of you are asking, are newly diagnosed and are asking your doctor to give you that time to make lifestyle changes. But unfortunately, when you don't have the knowledge or the guidance to do that, things just get worse. And that's where you find yourself giving in to the medications, right? So you do have to step outside of that traditional healthcare model in order to reverse prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. And so I've decided to fill that void, right? And so I've decided to make this available. So it's very far reaching, and we can overcome the barriers of being a busy mom, a busy career woman. We can overcome those barriers. And so I've designed my approach to be that way, to help you do this from the comfort of your home, from your busy life. I've designed it so that a very complicated process is simplified, and I've designed it so that accountability is built into it. And I have designed it so that it is at a fraction of the cost, because some of you have looked into these programs, these holistic programs, and the cost is astronomical. And I know that's a huge barrier for many, many women. So I've made it so that we can do it together, and we can do it at a fraction of the cost, right? So that it's something doesn't feel out of reach. Again, I want this to be something that's going to impact my community. It's going to make a change. And so I encourage you to take advantage of it. We are in a crisis, okay? Diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and prediabetes affects women of color disproportionately, okay? Women of color are faced with this disproportionately. And that is because we don't necessarily have equal access. We don't necessarily have the same knowledge. And from a cultural perspective, healthcare does not take our culture into consideration as well. So again, that is why I'm here, is because I want to pull us out of this crisis, empower us so we are healthier as a community, and that we can change crisis into an opportunity. So what's next? What's next is that, reach out to us, reach out to me. We can schedule a call to make sure that you to go over your unique circumstances, your unique concerns, and then we can figure out what's the best approach. Is my approach the best approach? Is this something that you can do? And so that is it. The really important part here is take a step. What do you have to lose, right? It's a free 15-minute call, and you have nothing to lose, only everything to gain from doing that. So I encourage you, empower yourself. You don't have to feel like you're losing control of your health. You can feel like you're in control again. And so I have started this, I've decided to start a challenge, an initiative called Reverse Her. The Reverse Her Challenge is a 12-week process. You will have the opportunity to work with me one-on-one, again, at a fraction of the cost. And that way we can work together to achieve your mission, and also to work to make this available to the wider community so that the impact will be so much greater. So this is where you would book your free discovery call initially. And then if you feel that this is right for you, we can move on to an actual consultation, a one-on-one strategy coaching consultation. But this is the initial call, and you will talk to us, and we will go ahead and set things up if you want to move forward from there. I'm going to put the link in the chat, so that way you can grab it from the chat if it's hard to see it on the board. And while I do that, does anybody have any questions or any comments that they want to add? So feel free to ask any questions. If you're struggling with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, if there is a question that is burning right now, that you even that might be, not necessarily related to something here, something I didn't necessarily address in the talk here, feel free to please put it in the comments. This is again another opportunity. This is where I am like a mentor, a coach right now. And so I want to provide you any information you need that's going to help get you to your goal, help to relieve any anxiety, or help push you to make a decision about making change. So, does anyone have any questions? So that is the link. If you want to go ahead and book the call, that way we can discuss your specific circumstances. We can discuss your specific health concerns and discuss, most importantly, where you want to take this, where you want to end up, where how you want to feel, health wise. Then definitely take advantage of that link, book the call. You have nothing to lose, nothing to lose, everything to gain. So I'm going to leave this open for, another minute or so. And if there's any questions, please feel free to put it in the comments. And I do this every night. Again, I there's different things I'll elaborate on tonight. We talked a little bit more about nutrition. So every night I will discuss, one of those five concepts, one of those five principles. I'll elaborate a little bit more, and hopefully that will help in your day-to-day decision making about your health and what steps you take to reverse prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. All right. So if there's no other questions, I will see you tomorrow night, and we will talk a little bit more about detox and the role that it plays in prediabetes and type 2 diabetes reversal, natural reversal. So I will see you then. Have a good night.